Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess my name's Mike. I would second that. I think that it's a slippery slope that you could get into if we start measuring spaces where there's not active growing plants.
I guess I'd be curious what people think about the space between plants and sort of how to account for that, because I think a lot of our difficulties around canopy measuring are, and I think this is less true for our indoor situations, but a lot of the how do you actually determine like what the canopy is in a seasonal sun grown situation is not as cut and dry all the time, and I think that's where a lot of the confusion around all this has come from. So I'd be curious like what people think about how do you measure the space in between plants, and where does the edge of the canopy start and the space between the canopy begin. I think that's where a lot of the lack of clarity is.
If you're looking for sun growers feedback on that, I mean, I set my field up to have 5-foot grow ways and 5-foot aisle ways. My plants are close enough together that, 5 by 125 feet, that's canopy, but the 5 by 125 between the next row is aisleway, right? I need access to my plants, and further, that provides me with a break for preventing bug superhighways, for preventing a bunch of contamination that I don't really need. So, I can say that measuring it fence to fence is something that I'm definitely against, but I can see the other side of it when you're machine harvesting versus growing it like we do with human beings. There's definitely some differences there.
So I'd like to throw out in the current rules, the applicants must designate on their operating plan the size and category of the production premises and the amount of square footage, basically like a part of your floor plan that you submit to the Liquor and Cannabis Board requires a canopy designated zone, or like a grow area is what it's designated as. Why not just draw that to your beds, and any walkways that aren't designated as canopy zone are your negative space? And all of our operating plans have been approved by licensing at our initial time of licensure or change requests or anything like that. So it seems to me, so long as we stick within 30,000 or whatever tier you're in of cultivation space, just make sure your plants are within that cultivation space, and you can have whatever size aisles, walkways, however you want to go about it. But what is happening on your farm should be reflective of what's taking place on your like canopy plan or your floor plan. Because there's going to be so many different ways that people grow cannabis. I've personally been out to countless farms when I was doing the Canopy analyst team work, and by putting a definition of what your canopy is going to look like in your operation plan, having that approved by licensing, that seems like a pretty cut and dry way to make sure that we're not overstepping, growing into aisleways, having to define what an aisleway is, where an aisleway for me may be very different for what an aisleway is for Doug.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of the hard part is it shouldn't be able to, it shouldn't dictate the strategy or how you want to operate your farm. It should dictate whether you're overstepping regulations or not, but it shouldn't dictate like how you want to set up your facility. If you want to have, which I'm not approving or disapproving, if you want to have 30-foot walkways because you're a big outdoor farmer, if you want to have 1-foot walkways because you're an outdoor farmer, it shouldn't really matter. That goes into kind of like strategy, and that goes into kind of how you want to run your operation. So I guess I just want to make that clear that I think we should be conscious of impeding on people's, the best way they think they can grow. Whether you're indoor, outdoor, greenhouse, it doesn't matter. It's just more kind of like how you want to run your own cultivation site.
Wow, we're a bunch of chai Cathys.
One thing I'll put out there just on this, like I've talked to some folks in Oregon about this issue in the last couple of weeks, just to kind of understand what they're doing down there, and the way that they approach this issue is if you do anything more complicated than a perimeter around that's 30,000 feet. So if you want to have walkways and stuff not count to your canopy, you have to do like a surveyed drawing and provide that. And I know that we do have some requirements for site plans, but they're not required to be done by a surveyor. So that could be one way to kind of navigate the issue. If you want to do anything that's more complicated than a square or a box, it has to be done by survey and then line up with that survey. And this is basically just to make it so that it's really clear for enforcement that they're going out and seeing what's actually reflected on the paper, because that's been the other problem over the years is there's a lot of confusion about reality versus the site plan.
Yeah, I'll mention that, when we did our remodel last season, before we started hearing that there was going to be fence to fence measurements and all the brouhaha started up, I just use Excel and I draw it down to the square foot aisleways, non-aisleways, where my 45s all sit in those aisles. And we did that way and submitted it to LCB so that it would be reflected as our floor plan. So I definitely echo that, if we've submitted to LCB what we're going to do, that should be good enough. And if we do stray outside of it, then that's clearly on us. But, I like defining plant canopy as the space underneath the growing plant, not, square footage. Because if it were square footage, then that should probably be in the I-502 written language of the law.
Just to play devil's advocate here, what are the proponent views of including hallways or walkways in plant canopy? If someone has that perspective.
Much canvas you can facilitate. It sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. You're cutting out.
Sorry. The moment that you're including those aisleways and walkways, you're just consuming space that you're not being very efficient with your plan that you've designated, right? Like,
Agreed.
I think if someone wants to do that, and then if they have, a branch growing out of their, bed into an aisleway, walkway, or whatever cultivation method, great, then that would be kosher. But if you have that as negative space on your canopy plan, you would then have to be concerned about that overgrowth. I mean, outdoor plants can get rather large, as we all know, and to have that peace of mind to not be concerned about overgrowth, I could see that as a benefit if you want to include that in your aisleway, like include aisleways and walkways. Personally, I wouldn't advise anyone to do that, but to each their own, right?
Yeah, I think I agree. I just wanted to get a better understanding of what the other side of the argument is, or what kind of the thought process was, other than maybe sheer. I don't know. That's kind of what I was hoping for. I'm with you.
Well,
I don't. I just wanted to understand more.
Leo, I understand from an enforcement perspective, if you only have to measure length and width, that's a pretty clean, easy way to measure it. However, I also don't think that overproduction of a plant is really the issue. When I think of overproduction, I think of when my team went out to a farm and the operation plan said that plants would be grown on pallets. Each pallet has this square footage, so it's only going to be so many pallets. And we go out there and there's a 130-foot pen of just filled to the gills with weed and not a pallet in sight. So it's
Yeah.
when there's those sort of deviations that's really, I think, the concern around canopy.
I'm sorry, what is the concern around being able to measure plant canopy when every municipality does a tree canopy cover? I work for the US Forest Service, the Smithsonian. You put a drone shot up, you take a photo, and then you put it through software and you get an accurate reading no matter what your pen looks like, and it's scientifically proven. Talking about plant canopy is ridiculous because it's a well-proven definition, and there are ways to measure it accurately, especially outdoor, without literally having to pull out any measuring or set foot in there. The technology is available. It's actually being used. It's well proven. So why are we even talking about what is and is not canopy? I think, to me, it's a complete lack of due diligence on the side of enforcement. They're just, like you're pointing out, oh, you'd have to measure it. That's a lot of effort. Why don't you just get the right technology? You don't even have to schedule appointments. You can circle back to the ones that look out or send the officer. Like, it just seems to me like this is a moot point, and I don't understand why the idea is change the rules or redefine plant canopy, which is scientifically like defined, but not enforce the rules we actually have.
You know,
Sorry.
for what it's worth, Jan, when we were doing the Canopy team work, one thing we did look into is we partnered with Department of Natural Resources, and we actually used DNR drones to survey a few outdoor farms to see what the feasibility was. We were able to accurately discern the difference between grass and very juvenile plants and full-size plants within 12 minutes to look at I think it was a 2-acre farm that had aisleways and beds. It was incredibly accurate. It was incredibly quick, and it would require a level of partnership with these other agencies. However, it was a complete success. So
yeah, I've done it too scientifically. That's what I'm saying is you don't need to discuss what plant canopy is, and it also on an IR it runs at a different temperature than most surrounding vegetation. So this is just a lack of. You're saying, oh, we need a partnership to do it properly, but we don't want to do that, so we need to change the rules. It seems kind of odd.
Well, there are some complications. You do have to have a pilot's license to be able to fly a drone in certain areas. And because the Liquor and Cannabis Board is a state-run agency, bending the rules, even though it may be okay, you would require, a staff member, a few staff members to have pilot licenses, which is why we ended up working with Department of Natural Resources, because there was staff with those credentials already. Not saying it's impossible, it does take an extra step.
It's so accurate. Why don't you just do that? If it's about budget capacity, this industry generates a lot of money. You should be able to outsource it or get it right without having to compromise the accuracy of the information you're collecting. Sorry.
And hey,
That's
this is Nick Payne with Sunco. One point that I wanted to make that sort of complicates things, but it's the reality of a lot of people's situations, is that some folks have invested in infrastructure based on site plans that were approved, and the measurement was different than just say a rectangle. And so they've spent, thousands of dollars on wells and fencing and things like that based on a different way of measuring canopy. And so I think it's important that folks in those positions should be able to maybe have their plans grandfathered in if there is a way that's set in stone in terms of measuring. And I think it makes 100% sense to just measure a rectangle, and people use that how they want.
Oh, okay.